Production of Ruckus is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly, and our topics this week is Mission Gateway, Mission Impossible? Is Donald Trump in the White House still a possibility? And is it possible that Kansas City will find out that tax breaks don't pay off? Plus roast and toast. But we start with our interview segment and focus on the Dole Institute, part of the KU campus in Lawrence, and its director, Bill Lacey. Bill is a veteran political operative who has worked with some of the top names in the GOP, Bob Dole and Ronald Reagan for starters. Bill was a strategist for Senator Dole and served as political director in the White House for part of the Reagan administration. He's been director of the Dole Institute since 2004 and has continued to enhance its reputation as bipartisan and philosophically balanced. We are very pleased indeed to welcome Bill Lacey to Ruckus. Bill, it's great to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be here, Mike.
Have you ever, in your experience, seen a presidential campaign like this one?
No, not at all. This one is unique in so many respects. It's unique in that you have a first-time candidate who is nominated by the Republican Party. It's unique in the sense that you've got the two most unpopular candidates. On each side has the most unpopular candidate they've ever put up for president. There's all kinds of unique aspects to this election.
I was thinking the only one that is sort of analogous that comes to mind is 1964, when the Republican nominee was being attacked by Republicans.
That's an interesting comparison, and of course what happened after 64 is you can make the case, and Kevin Phillips did in the emerging Republican majority, that Goldwater paved the way
for Ronald Reagan,
Nixon and the Reagan coalition.
Next question. If it is a debacle for Republicans this year, as some people think it will be, lose the White House, lose both houses of Congress, how does the Republican Party start to rebuild itself?
These parties are very resilient, and I remember when Bill Clinton won in 1992, I wrote a piece for the Institute of Politics at Harvard that basically said there's nothing wrong with the Republican Party that the Democratic Party can't fix, and lo and behold, 2 years later, Republicans take control of both houses of Congress for the first time in my life. So part of that is going to be a reaction to what President Clinton, if she wins, does as president. But I don't think we're going to lose the House. I think we'll hold the House, and I think that's going to make it a very problematic 2 years until the next midterm election.
Bill, what do you think has changed national politics so much since you were active at the Reagan administration and elsewhere? Is it the 24-hour news cycle and the cable news organization?
I think it's the 24-hour news cycle, Mike. It's social media, and it's this belief, which frankly I share, that for the last 16 years, both parties have been pretty ineffective in terms of leading. I mean, you look at Republicans who are fed up with the Republican Party, I can understand it. I still can't say I understand Trump, but I can understand they're being upset. You know, they had 8 years of President Bush, who they thought was far too liberal to the left. They grew the size of government. They've had 8 years of President Obama. They've had, if my memory is right, 12 out of 16 years of Congress being controlled by Republicans, at least in the House, and they see nothing for the results.
Republicans have said, give us the House and Senate and we'll change things. They have the House and Senate, and for many Republicans, nothing has really changed.
That's exactly right, and that's the source of anger on the Republican side.
Well, as much as I'd love to keep talking to you about political campaigns because you're extraordinarily knowledgeable, let me ask you about the Dole Institute, and you're knowledgeable about that as well. How do you define it? What is it exactly?
Well, we have a kind of a three-part definition. We're a museum. People can find out about Bob Dole's life and the greatest generation. Secondly, we have all of his papers and artifacts from his long career in public service. And third, we offer public programming. We try to offer public programming, as you said in your introduction, in a bipartisan, philosophically balanced way. I'm really appalled by the complete lack of civility in this election and that we see in politics in general. We're really working to try to get people to respect other points of view and to learn how to discuss things civilly.
And it's easy to find the Dole Institute. If you can't drive over, you have a lot of stuff on your internet site.
Yes, www.doleinstitute.com. HillsongInstitute.org. Folks can find out what programs are coming up and everything that we do.
And I would say, from my own experience, you do bring in from time to time some really big names in politics and journalism. I recall going over one Sunday when you had Bob Woodward.
Yeah.
And I was amazed. I didn't realize how close you two were during your days in Washington.
Yeah, well, he wrote a book about the '96 campaign called The Choice that I figured in fairly prominently. It was fun to see Bob again. And we're doing our post-election conference December 8th and 9th, and we'll have a lot of experts in for that. It's a fascinating opportunity.
Admission is free at the Dole Institute?
Admission is always free.
All right, great. Good to see you again,
Yeah,
Bill.
good to
Thank
see you,
very
Mike.
much.
Thank you.
That's Bill Lacey, director of the Dole Institute on the KU campus in Lawrence. Quick note that next week, my guest for an interview segment will be former Kansas City Star editorial writer Yael Abou-Hakka. Now, let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Attorney Stephen J. Marakian is with the law firm of Wersch, Hobbs, and Marakian. Yes, the J stands for Jewish Prudential. Gwen Grant is president and CEO of the Urban League in Kansas City. Mary O'Halloran is a media and communications consultant, and Ron Freeman is the former director of the Kansas GOP, now active as a motivational speaker and writer. Thanks to all of you for coming in. It's good to see you again. If we played music for the panelists, we would likely select Happy Days Are Here Again for Mary and Gwen. For Steve and Ron, I've got a right to sing the blues. But that's based on the assumption that the polls are correct and virtually every news outlet is accurately reporting that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats are on the way to a major victory in the November 8th election. No one knows for sure, however, so we'll look at a couple of scenarios. Let's start with this one. The polls are right, Donald Trump loses, and Republicans lose both houses of Congress. What does the Republican Party do then to rebuild itself? Let's start with Steve.
Well, first I'd say that the media thinks the fat lady, or should I say nasty woman, has sung. I think it ain't over till it's over. I don't think Trump's going to win, though. And so, but I think a lot of this is a scare tactic to try to keep Republicans from voting precisely because of the House and Senate. And I hope Republicans will go to vote, and whether they vote for Trump or not, it's up to them, but I hope they'll vote for the Republican, representatives and senators. Because what happens here is, in my view, I think what is very likely to happen, because of the damage that Donald Trump has done to the Republican Party, is that the Democrats, I believe, will take control of the Senate. They won't take control of the House. And then we will have a fractured government, even worse than it has been, for at least the first 2 years. Then at the end of the first 2 years, I believe what we're going to see is the Republican Party will have coalesced. They're not dead. Obama said they were dead after his election. They're not dead. They will coalesce, and the out-year election, the Republicans will take back the Senate. By that time, the Supreme Court at least will have gone one way, and we're going to have some serious problems.
Will it coalesce as a more moderate party or a more conservative party?
I believe it's going to be a more conservative party, but in a different way than Donald Trump supporters, because I don't think Donald Trump's a conservative. I never have thought that.
Ron, if Republicans do badly, lose both houses, lose the White House, what would the GOP have to do to rebuild?
Oh, I think right now you have in the Democrats' eyes, the perfect Republican nominee. They can throw mud at him. He responds to everything. There's a lot of negative things there. So they've got a perfect environment. But that doesn't symbolize what the party has stood for. It symbolizes who Donald Trump is and what he stands for. So they're going to make their case. They're going to make their attacks. If they win this year, it's going to be because of him. He won't be on the ballot the next time around. So you're going to have a party that's going to come back to its own roots, establish itself firmly as the party of the American people, and win elections.
A more conservative or a more moderate party?
I think more conservative. But not, they will be conservative. I mean, and I think that's where the distortion is. What is a conservative now?
Mary, if there's a wave election and Democrats win both houses and the White House, what will change in American life for the typical citizen?
Well, nothing fast. I mean, the new president has to find out where her friends are in the Senate. Did you say if they take over the Senate?
Democrats won both houses.
Well, the Democrats likely to be elected are pretty centrist, just like she is. And I just.
Will we see higher taxes for most people? Will taxes go up?
Her plan to do what she wants to do for college. Let's just take one important program: the college free for the first 2 years for people making less than $125,000. That would be paid for by an increase in the tax on the top 1% of earners and people who actually pay taxes, unlike Mr. Trump. But if you don't mind, Mike, I just have a really serious difference of opinion with Ron. And yeah, there's about the Republican Party that Donald Trump is currently leading is his party. Yeah. It's not going to disappear if he loses. Trumpism is here to stay, and that is the Republican Party.
Will it be a third win if that premise is true, that Trump's party is here to say there will be a Trump party? Will it be a third party?
No, I don't think there'll be a third party. I think the problem for the Republican Party is that it has gone too far to the right, that it has rendered itself totally ineffective, and it's going to be very difficult to come back here if they lose the third opportunity to take over the White House. It's a party that is in total disarray. It's a party that eats its own when it's angry, and that just does not work. And that's why
Bernie Sanders would disagree.
This is a party that chose, with a majority of the House and the Senate, not to govern, and that's why the electorate is so upset. It's amazing that they don't understand why people are disillusioned and would choose
when there's been a
someone
lot
like
of talk
Donald
about
Trump.
whether Trump would accept the results of the election. If Trump wins the election, will Democrats come on board and accept those results?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely. I mean,
Just like Al Gore did.
Every
Kind of like 2000?
Just like John Kerry did.
You got to continue
No
to
candidate for
speak
president
about
has
that.
ever done.
Al Gore did accept.
I'm talking to Gwen right now,
Yeah,
I
but
think.
he's made that offhand statement that Al Gore didn't accept the results of the election. He absolutely did. And when the law stated that there needed to be a recount, he let due process take its course. And then when it was evident that it wasn't,
So
he conceded.
Democrats will
So that
readily
was
accept the results if
yes, the
Trump is
Democratic
in.
Party will
Donald Trump is
accept.
the first candidate for president who has ever said before a single vote has been cast, that I may or may not accept the democratic process. That's why so many Republican leaders came forward and said, Steve came forward and said that is a disqualifying statement. It is a radical departure from anything we've ever seen. And the American public reacted.
Has he talked it back some?
Yes. Barack Obama said in 2008
he
during
said
the
he would-
primary that the primary was rigged against him by Hillary Clinton. So let's be
on,
honest
come
about
on.
this.
He
Let's be
did
honest.
Never said it.
What Trump said,
Whoever's elected is going to have to
is
deal with
no worse than what Al Gore
Obamacare.
did.
We've got issues that are
Well,
real serious
one
issues.
final quick question and a quick answer, please. If Mrs. Clinton is the next president, she'll still have problems to face in the White House, won't she?
Yes,
There's a
of
lot
course.
going on
I
that
mean,
she'll have to deal
she
with.
will, she is the first president, and she's going to have a terrific vice president at her side from my perspective. But she will have to find friends among the
We'll
leaders.
still have the emails. We'll still have the Benghazi controversy.
Well, it
all
depends
those
upon
things.
whether-
We'll continue on
Obamacare.
Obamacare.
That's gonna be all kinds
I
of
want to
issues.
hear.
All right.
I want to hear her first call to
she
Vladimir
will be
Putin.
the president
Yeah,
of
right.
all
That'll be
people.
interesting. Yeah.
He's going to be a good president, Mike.
The Mission Gateway project is still not mission accomplished. The 16-acre lot at Johnson Drive and Shawnee Mission Parkway has sat empty for a decade. The would-be developer, Tom Valenti, told a public meeting in Mission he still wants to make a deal with the city. His latest plan would not include the controversial Walmart, but would feature restaurants, hotels, apartments, and some retail. Valenti told the meeting he will need financial support from the city, including tax increment financing, a community improvement district, and general obligation bonds. After all this time, a decade, do you think there is still a reasonable chance this project's coming to fruition? Mary?
Absolutely not. No, I have no idea. Who has any idea? What is it, 10 years? How long have we been? We've been talking about this for 10 years.
10 years,
on this
a little
show.
over 10,
Yes, and it's just this big plot of weeds that sits there along the road, and we just keep driving by it, and poor little Mission. God help them. I really like Mission. I drive down Johnson Drive a lot and shop there and do things, meet friends and so on, because it's charming. But they can't decide what they want to do here. They got rid of Walmart. Now we don't have anything. And, one has to ask a serious question. Who is this Mr. Valenti? Do we know Mr. Valenti? How does a guy get by with buying this property to do so and then just let it sit? And nothing has happened.
Steve,
I don't think it ever will. They're going to have to change their ideas about what they want.
Steve,
there.
what do you think? Do you think there's a possibility something will come to fruition there?
Well, I tend to agree with Mary that I have great concerns about Mr. Valenti because I don't think he's going to do anything, and I'm not sure what his game is. I think, like a lot of developers, the old rule about developers is they always play with other people's money. They don't want to put their own money in. So what he's looking for is somebody to come in and actually fund everything through either tax increment or something like
Well,
that.
it sounds like it would be through city money.
Yeah,
General
exactly.
obligation bond, right, exactly.
But the problem,
Yeah,
I
it's
believe,
a bad idea.
the problem is, I believe, when they essentially ran out Walmart, I understand the local shop
Well, I
owners.
don't
I get
understand.
it.
Why would Walmart be such a terrible
Well,
possibility?
you're asking the wrong guy because I don't think it would be. But you had a lot of opposition from shop owners who believe that if Walmart's there, people go there, not my shop. You have a lot of union folks and other folks who complain that the Walmart treats its employees terribly and so forth. You have a lot of opposition, political opposition. In reality,
Well, and there was one a half a mile away.
that's
that
true.
would move.
But in reality, that design with Walmart as the anchor tenant, you could make something there. Right now, it's going to be very difficult unless they come up with another big anchor tenant and a concept of combined residential and shopping and make it a nice complex. Right now, it's sad because, as Mary said, Mission is a beautiful little town and it's a well-run town, but that is a blight and needs to be fixed.
And I think when the city council, or many on the city council, were elected saying, we don't want a Walmart and we don't want this project, we want something better. So it seems unlikely to me that council would approve all these tax breaks that Mr. Valenti is asking for.
Yeah, I agree with Mary and Steve. It seems unlikely, and I
Agreement on
I don't know what they're going to do,
100%, yeah.
honestly.
Ron, what else could be there if not a shopping center type
alley.
arrangement? What else could go there?
Well, you know what?
Government building?
I think that that's his call. He bought the property. He should come up with something that he would finance and take the risk on. He's asking, the city to assume the risk, and that's just not going to happen.
Well,
I
it
think,
seems no
Mike,
city.
I think one thing that's happened is that a lot of people want something. They want to move Mission upscale, you know, and they want to separate themselves from a
But that
PR
didn't work
perspective
before
from
already.
Roland Park, and they don't want a
Isn't it
box
already?
store like Target or Walmart. And they want nice upscale things to go in there, and nobody's coming around very
But don't you
quickly.
think, Steve, sooner or later the city council is not going to stand by and allow this 16-acre plot of land to sit there empty any longer or much longer?
Well, they certainly shouldn't. They should do what council people are supposed to do, and that is govern and not be swayed by, as Mary indicates, a lot of folks who want something really pretty. They want like nice apartments and condos. Those don't generate the kind of revenue that a city needs. They need a multi-purpose mixed unit similar to what you have at the Prairie Fire out in Leawood. That's a beautiful development.
Yeah.
You need something along those lines, and that could go in there, but a guy like Valenti, whoever owns it, has got to put up the money to build it.
All right,
They should buy it and build a park, put a park there. Be
maybe
great.
no public policy.
I agree.
Let me start over here. Maybe no public policy question generates more debate than this one. Do tax breaks, such as tax increment financing, pay off for the city that offers them? Well, Kansas City, Missouri certainly offers them, to say the least. And now the council says it hopes to find out. Under discussion, a $350,000 contract with consultants to study whether development tax breaks actually result in more jobs, higher property values, and other economic benefits. The Show Me Institute's Patrick Toohey, who appears from time to time as a panelist on Ruckus, raises this question on Show Me's website. Will the study be used to assess policy or promote successes? In other words, will the facts come out regardless of what they show? Good question. What do you think, Gwen?
I think those are excellent questions. I think there would be a lot of community concern about this study. $350,000 to consultants, to pay to consultants to come and possibly make a statement that, you know, to say what you want them to say. I think that it will not be a truly independent study is the concern. I think that they could have taken a better course by identifying an academic institution to conduct the study so that it would be subjected to scholarly standards and objectivity that would be much more amenable, or you know, I think the veracity of the work would certainly withstand the scrutiny of the community.
So are you saying the deck would be stacked and the
Well,
results would
I
say
think
yes, tax breaks?
certainly the perception would be that it would be rigged, and so therefore it's going to be a study that would only serve to you know, possibly promote and be welcomed by the development community and the city EDC staff. And so I think Patrick is absolutely right. You don't help the situation by taking this route. I mean, you know, you hire consultants. It's against the consultants' own best interest to come back with a study that says everything you've done here is wrong.
But Mary, aren't there legitimate reasons for cities to offer tax breaks? Our friend, former Mayor Wheeler, once said, you know, these kind of benefits are the price you have to pay if you're going to play in the big leagues.
Oh, and only Wheeler says things like that you remember for 25 years. Yes, of course, I agree with some of the things you had to say, but you know, in thinking about this, I cut my teeth on opposing 353 project on the Plaza,
It's tax
as you know.
abatement, right?
But I think that the city is politically, here's a problem. Ordinary citizens cannot get their minds around how this all works. So every time a new project comes along they can oppose by petition, it you know, gets some support, because it's hard to understand how all these tax gifts produce this supposed economic benefit. And you know, the great American genius Peter Drucker, the great management guru, said that anything that is measured, whatever is measured, improves. This is a major effort on their part to start making these decisions based on metrics, on real facts about what the economic benefit can be. But I agree with Gwen. It should go to a university or an academic
Ron,
institution.
if the study should come out and the results presented honestly and the results are tax breaks don't make any difference, they don't help, do you think Kansas City, Missouri would quit offering them?
No, I think that you've got to track business. I think you look at the reality. Truman Sports Complex, was that a good investment? Yeah, absolutely. Crossroads, Power and Light. Then you look at other situations where it hasn't been as effective. I don't think it's a real complex situation. I don't think it requires $350,000 in investment to find that, determine it. I think what it requires is somebody just to take a close look at what we've done, what succeeded, what failed, and find out what made those things work.
Steve, aren't we seeing a tax break of sorts in the last couple of days? The announcement that the American Royal is going to move to Kansas City, Kansas, and the inducement is Star Bonds.
Well, sure. Look, I have always been skeptical, and rightly so, of tax increment financing, tax abatements, and so forth. However, I believe that there are appropriate tax incentives that can be used and have been used effectively. But Gwen, and amazingly, I'm agreeing with Gwen and Mary twice today,
Of course you're agreeing with me.
is right. People do
It's
not
time.
hire, and this happens in the law business all the time, so I have experience with this. Lawyers and cities do not hire consultants unless they know what the consultants are going to say.
Thank you.
Okay, so
In
this
other
is-
words, a consultant can work out a study
Yeah.
that meets the
the consultant
requests of the
is making a
client.
report as paid for. The $350,000 is a complete boondoggle. The way to get this done, don't have to go to university. Okay, Mark Funkhauser, who was a horrible mayor, but was a good auditor,
Yes.
had all the records. The city has all the records. All you do is go back and look for the last 10, 15 years at the tax increment financing projects and then find out whether they were profitable
but
for the
if
city.
the city did the study itself, who would believe the results?
No, you can have
you gotta turn
an
that
independent.
Turn the
Look,
data
this is-
over
Exactly.
to an
All right.
independent
Exactly.
entity.
And now we
That's right.
head
There
to
you
the
go.
Now we head to the soapbox for roast and toast, where the Ruckettes say hooray or oy vey to people at events of the news, and we start with Steve.
My toast is for all you lucky folks who have Obamacare. The president lied to you. You lost your doctors, you got deductibles you can't meet, and now your premiums are going up 25 to 125%. Hillary says she'll fix it. She wouldn't lie, or would she? You want government-run health care? Ask the vets how the VA system is working for them. You want socialized medicine? Ask the Canadians. They hate it. Yet, here it comes, folks, courtesy of Hillary Clinton. As my Irish friends say, brilliant!
Mary,
Well, the last time they asked the veterans whether they liked the VA, the
are
vast
you, is this a
majority
toast or
did.
are you in the middle of a roast or toast?
I
They
just
hate
had a
it.
comment
Oh,
because
okay.
he had an
Well,
inaccuracy
we're in
there,
kind of a
Mike.
hurry here.
Yeah, my toast is for Hillary Clinton. My chance to do this, to toast her intelligence, courage, courage and resilience during this campaign. And I'll tell you, you can tell a candidate for president by the first big decision they make, and he made the decision to pick Kansas City's own Tim Kaine. Kansas City's own Tim Kaine for vice president. Tim is very popular in this town for good reason, and the Rockhurst community, the Irish Catholic community, the Overland Park, as well as Kansas City, Missouri, and the Missouri Tiger community. Proud of Tim Kaine. Great choice he will be at her side.
Let's
and
move
do
along
her
here,
well.
Gwen.
Okay, I'm going to keep it light. This is a toast for the World Series. Congratulations to the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago Cubs for making this an exciting World Series. Nothing would be greater other than the Royals being there. But you know, Cleveland hasn't been there since 1948. Chicago won the 2 World Series, 1907 and 1908, and have not. They returned in 1945 but lost to the Detroit Tigers. So this is an exciting World Series. Let's enjoy it.
Ron.
I'm going to roast this entire presidential campaign, both the candidates and the public. And you get on social media, and it's always destroy this, destroy that. Why don't we build? Excuse me. Why don't we build something like a future for our children? Obamacare is a train wreck. Foreign policy is going to be a disaster, no matter who's elected. And we're focused on personal destruction instead of going forward as a nation. And I think our kids deserve better.
Finally, there were some funny and some not so funny lines from Hillary and Donald at the Al Smith dinner last week in New York. But one of the funniest came from the MC, Al Smith IV, great-grandson of the first ever Catholic presidential nominee. He deserves a toast for pointing out, with Cardinal Timothy Dolan and Donald Trump both in attendance, that for the first time ever at the dinner, the biggest tax-exempt landlord at the event was not the Catholic Church. And that's Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, I'm Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching and good night.